Here we go. All right. How's it going, everybody? We're Graphic Novel Geeks. We have a special guest today, Mr. Joe Thompson, and we can kick it off.
Yeah, just introduce Joe Thompson a little bit. He is a resident of San Francisco that creates comic books. He's got a comic company called Fracture Comics that produces several different titles. Joe, yeah, why don't you kick it off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and Fracture Comics.
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Name's Joe Thompson. San Francisco native, born and raised. I know that's like super rare. That's like a unicorn or catching a rare Pokemon or something. But yeah, somehow I'm still here and being creative. I've always, I've been a huge geek my whole life, comics, anime, you name it. And I used to draw as a kid, fell off in college. One thing I kind of regret, like I wish I could have kept drawing, because then maybe I could have actually drawn my actual books and saved a lot of money. But I've never stopped writing. That's the main thing I've stuck with my entire life. And yeah, and then in grad school, that's when I met a good buddy of mine, Chris Adams. We were in film school together, and he was a directing major and I was a screenwriting major. And then it turns out like he was a writer as well. And what do writers do? You share your writing. And I liked some of the stuff he wrote, specifically a story called Death of Darkness that I really liked. He's more on the manga side of things, but I really dug this story. It kind of reminded me of Yu Yu Hakusho, my favorite anime of all time. And thank you, yeah. And then it gave me Bleach vibes as well. So because I kind of like dig the dark kind of supernatural kind of stories, and I guess kind of supernatural shonens. But anyways, that story like spoke to me, and I said, you know what, dude, I have a story I'm cooking up as well that kind of fit in the same universe, and that's and that story was Hellfire. And then I convinced him to do work with me. He was a bit reluctant at first. He was like, man, this dude's trying to make me do work. So we said, no, we're gonna start a shared universe where we bridge, the gap between American comics and Japanese manga. So Death of Darkness would be a manga, Hellfire would be a comic, and then eventually that would lead to a crossover where we would kind of like go back and forth between styles. Like the plan was to have, when we got to the crossover, like a chapter would be in manga style by Chris's artist, and then like the next chapter would be, my artist, right? We just kind of go back and forth, That was kind of like our long-term goal, I guess our phase one, if you will. So no, we set out to do that, and yeah, we hit the ground running. He updated his story. I finished mine, and we went through a lot of rewrites. Obviously, a lot of nights, because when you do a shared universe, you have to make sure things are coherent. So many nights of just staying up talking about the rules, characters, things like that.
Yeah.
And we finally got there. It wasn't easy. For me personally, a little bit more difficult, because I went through a couple artists at first, either people who just had outright bad communication, or who just didn't even do work and just took my money. It was rough, and then finally, one last time, I was on a Facebook group, and I saw, of course, unfortunately, in this group, the writers and artists were kind of like arguing back and forth. And I'm like, this is counterintuitive, guys. Like, we gotta, okay, whatever. But I noticed this guy in particular who, he didn't argue, he just kept posting his art. And I was just like, you know what? I stared at it for a few days, and I was like, you know what? Let me message this guy. And I was like, you know what? At this point here, I've been burned. So I'm like, if I just ask him to do character designs, like that's easy. At least I can look at my characters. There's no commitment, right? So then I reached out to this guy who would be Carl Embozado, based in the Philippines. I reached out to him, and he was like, okay. So I gave him like 3 of my main characters to draw. He got them to me like within a couple of days. Of course, he does, his style was like pencils first. You give approval, then he'll do inks, and then yeah. But he got it to me in a couple of days, and I was like, oh. He's like, what's next, boss? Oh, well, I got some more characters for you to draw. So he drew those. Then he's like, all right, what's next? I'm like, ooh, can I get like a cool pinup of just like my entire cast like together? All right, what's next? You want to draw a comic? And he was just like, yeah, man. And so that's when the project officially, picked up. And then it just so happened the colorist who I got for the project, he and Carl already knew each other. So earlier when I worked with previous people that didn't work out, I got a couple pieces colored and tried some people out. One of those colorists ended up being Lance Catan, who was just efficient and just awesome to work with. Turns out once I started working with Carl, they knew each other. So basically I formed a team, funny enough, of people who kind of already knew each other. And it just was, for the most part, smooth sailing since then in terms of like the workflow. We got better as we kept working at it, and we produced, I like to think, a lot of cool stuff. And I hope, Chris and I can still get to our crossover. Carl is no longer with us now. He did pass away in 2021, but still Lance has said that he's willing to keep working on the project. But I found out recently that Lance himself actually draws. So he's just been coloring for me for like 8 years. Then I looked up, he was drawing some cool stuff. I was like, wait, dude, you draw too? He's like, oh yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm like, wait, Lance, what? And then so I had him draw a pinup, just to kind of test his style. And so yeah, if I move forward with Hellfire, Lance and I will keep the dream alive. So yeah.
That's super great.
Yeah, cool. I like to hear that that you are planning to keep Hellfire rolling. I know that the loss of your artist and friend Carl is probably really rough. I was wondering, like, before we get in your comics, maybe why don't you tell us a funny story or some, a story about what you remember most about Carl?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, no, it's one of those things where like I've always wanted to like actually meet him in person. But we use Facebook Messenger like all the time, and we would totally like, I would tell, like, he knew like the universe in and out. Like I told him stuff that was going to happen in stories way later on, because I'm just thorough like that, where Chris and we did a whole bunch of writing. So we had a plan. We weren't like the DCEU. We actually had a plan. So it was cool to talk with Carl about things that were going to come. And then you would see him get excited and go, oh, cool. Because like, again, like he's reading my scripts, he's drawing these characters, he's getting to know them. And then he'll be like, I'll tell him, oh, well, I have this plan later. He's like, oh, wait, so-and-so's going to do X, Y, and Z. That's going to happen. Oh, that's cool. So like he actually was invested with the project. But one cool thing was that he, like at this point here, I'll credit him as a co-creator, because he came up with some cool stuff that I didn't even think about. So even something as simple as, I may write a script and do a page layout, and then he'll, maybe cut a panel out and like tell it, like the same page with like less panels or something like that, and it works way better. And he'll change something up, and I'll be like, that actually looks better than what I had in mind. Okay, Carl. You got to the point where you trust him. But one cool thing he came up with, there's a villain. I don't know if he shows up in your I guess your half of volume 1, but there's a major demon that shows up named Leviathan, who kind of tortured the main character when he spent time in hell. And legit, when he shows up, is the one thing that like scares the main character. He's like, no, I'm not dealing with this guy, I'm running. But he's this big demon and has like this like massive axe. And I remember I told Carl, in the script, yeah, he has an axe. But then Carl took it a step further and drew like these detailed skulls, like these skulls in the axe. So it's like all these skulls covering the axe. And then he just did that. And I was just like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Now that gives me an idea for a backstory. And then that made me go, you know what? Those are just the collection of his favorite souls, right? And I'm like, and it became part of the character, but that's something that Carl legit like just brought to the table, and I rolled with it. And I was like, that's cool, man. So now we had that was just fun. Just like things like that would happen, which I think just made the stories overall better.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great synergy. Get those creative juices rolling, man. Well, thanks for sharing.
So he helped you write basically half of the IP Bible.
No, he's definitely was a collaborator, like for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think it goes to show like it's like the reason why Marvel in the early days worked so well is like it was all these people working together in the same office for the most part, the old Marvel bullpen. Having people to like throw ideas against is always like a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's great to bounce ideas off people.
Yeah, for sure. I watched this documentary on Chris Claremont and the X-Men, and Louise Simonson and Anne Nessendi, I think, were talking about they did a lot of collaboration like that as their editors and stuff with Chris Claremont, and just three minds are better than one, right?
Well, it's how you got Wolverine and Power Pack and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, Power Pack.
I like
Power Pack was a great comic.
Well, Louise Simonson is a great writer, right?
Mhm.
Cool. Well, so next, why don't you tell us a little bit about Hellfire, who he is, and a little real life background too, like what inspired you to make him, and why we've got Hellfire comics today.
Yeah. So Hellfire is the first comic I ever did. And it started off as a screenplay back when I was in film school. And so I've been with this project for a very long time. And it's, of course, it becomes very dear to you when you spend a long time working on it. But, it's a supernatural, more dark supernatural story. I like my vigilante characters. Like, I'm a huge Daredevil fan. Daredevil was my go-to, my number one guy. So much so that I often joke and say Hellfire is basically, Daredevil if he had supernatural powers.
Nice.
But I like that. And I've always liked supernatural stories. So, like my dark stuff. So what I did was, I wrote this originally as a screenplay back in film school, and then realized after a while, I don't have millions of dollars. So let me turn this into a comic. And it basically was a comic at that point. I mean, the way the story was written, it was just like, okay, let's do this. And so the basic story is, the main character's name is Kane Cage. So he's been to hell and back, literally, for reasons you'll find out. And his city's in a really rough, real rough place. And he's willing to do whatever's necessary to protect it. So he's going to go up against obviously regular street level people, criminals, demons, of course, some morally questionable angels, and some other superpowered individuals. But in the first story, he's definitely dealing with some rage issues. And that's probably not a good combination if you can create and control fire. So he's definitely on the warpath in that first book, and kind of has to learn to keep that rage in check and transition from just being judge, jury, and executioner into maybe being more of a heroic symbol for the city.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so the three of us got Hellfire Incorporated.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about Hellfire Incorporated and how it transitions from Hellfire to Hellfire Incorporated to kind of kick off our conversation here.
Sure. So Incorporated, the plan was always to get to that point, because Incorporated takes place later in the timeline. Obviously, because I just mentioned Kane's rage issues. Since you read Incorporated, you noticed there were no rage issues there. Obviously, this is much later in the timeline where he's working with people and more mellow. But so the plan was always to do, like the first Hellfire book, and then the second one, Dark Army, third one, Hellfire Legacy, whenever that happens. And then it would be the crossover, and then post crossover would be Incorporated. And so Incorporated is more of, he's gone through character development. He's in a good place. Again, he's working with others. He's not solo. And I wanted to actually have a Hellfire book at the table that maybe someone younger could look at, because the main storyline is a little too mature. So I was kind of like, if I could make something that was more PG-13, and then just kind of even frame Incorporated as kind of because you read it almost feels like a pilot where it could maybe be an animated series, something like that. So just kind of playing around with that. But the main thing I did it because there are certain characters that appear in there who, if I went my proper timeline with how long it takes to produce comics, if I would even get to that point, audiences wouldn't even be introduced to certain characters. So I said, okay, let me at least just do this. So I put them in here so people can at least see these characters. And then, so at least they know they exist. And then, engage public interest, I guess. but and then continue on the main line to work towards getting to that point in the timeline. But I wanted to do, like a one-shot story that's easily digestible, basically introduces everybody in a kind of like a quick way with the captions, and yeah, have something that you wouldn't need a whole lot of lore to maybe get into, because yeah, if you read Dark Army, you kind of had to have read, book 1, which is like 300 pages, there's continuity. But Incorporated, yeah, I feel like anyone can kind of pick that up, in my opinion, and maybe just kind of jump into the world a little bit.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I've been a fan for a little while now, a few years since I picked up the first volume of Genesis, and so yeah, me and my partners did get the Hellfire Incorporated #1. So they were unfamiliar with your universe, and so let's see what they think about it as a jumping on point.
Yeah. Oh, you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, so I think it's a really good way to introduce all these characters together at the same time. It's like a team up thing, and that's pretty cool. And when I was reading it, it does seem like a almost like a TV show, where like introduces a certain way, a character, a certain like, it says their name and like a phrase they do, and then oh, there they are, and now they're here doing this. It's very like TV like, but it's a great way to introduce them together, I think. So shows their powers. So making a one shot is not a bad idea. That does kind of get people introduced to it, and I do feel like I could jump on without being too lost, really, because it's just very basic team up thing, and I felt like I wasn't lost throughout it because they're just kind of starting and joining up together and stuff like that. So that part was cool. I like that. I also like this. That's
yes, the stomach.
Yeah, so I said I was trying to like control myself and make it more PG-13, but I can't help myself. I still have to throw some disturbing imagery.
I mean, I'll be good there a little bit. I think what I like was when he touched that rock or that relic, it became alive, and I'm just wondering if we'll see more of that.
Oh, let me introduce you to the demons of Nurgle and stuff from Warhammer some days. So if you like stomach mouths like that.
Yes, please.
Warhammer fan, nice.
Cool. Yeah, what did you think about the comic and it being an introductory piece, Dylan?
I like Nora, actually. She's like really interesting to me because it's like she reminds me of a lot of people I've met in my life, like actually people that I know. So it's like I'm actually like wanting to learn more about her. It's like it was a nice little tease.
Yeah, she has a larger presence in the third Hellfire book, because the whole third storyline kind of involves her and her daughter, and so like that's where they get introduced in like the third volume, which hopefully will be worked on at some point. But no, exactly, she gets way more fleshed out in the actual volume.
Yeah, she was like the most interesting character to me. It's like I don't know why. It's like, well, yeah, I like female-led books anyway. So it's like, or female leads and female characters in general always have, and she just had an interesting design, and her like attitude is nice in this. So it's like I'm actually kind of excited to just go forward with I probably will order like around payday like the Hellfire 1 and 2, just because I don't know that much about that character. Like Keith threw me in the deep end, but that's how you learn to swim.
For sure.
It's also like picking up any long-running comic now. It's like, where do you start? And it's like you have to start somewhere.
That's true.
Yeah, I've got to say, so first off, I'm a super big fan of like supernatural superhero comics, right? So not like these old, Tales from the Crypt or House of Secrets. I mean, those are all right, but early on when I was collecting, one of my favorites was the Tom Mandrake Spectre series. And currently, I really love the current Ghost Rider series. I feel like that's a series that I've been waiting for a long time, written by Benjamin Piercy. So, Hellfire is really right up my alley of supernatural superheroes, and really dig it. I did find Hellfire Incorporated, having read, first I read volume 1 Genesis years ago, and then I read Hellfire Incorporated 1. And so, I thought it was as everybody else is saying, very well paced to make, a cartoon series off of. I felt how the characters was introduced was very cool. It just, real simple. This is who they are. And I felt kind of and hoping that it'll be like you'll learn more about them later as it goes on, and giving a good way so we can just kind of learn the names and the faces, and then as the series goes on, figures out really who they are and get deeper details onto their background. So one of my favorite parts, besides the stomach mail, I also love right here, they're fighting a demon and he gets shot right in the eye.
I saw that.
That was so awesome. I'm like, yeah, bullseye. So that was one of my favorite parts. I thought that the art was pretty cool. It's certainly stylized, a little animated looking, Carl's art. I thought these pages were really cool. Spoiler alert, Kane does kick some demon butt. So I thought it was well paced. It is a quick read. It didn't it wasn't overly complicated. I was where I had to know the backstory for sure. Knowing it did help lead to my enjoyment, but I think that people wanting to try it out, this is suggested ages of 13 plus, and being a single issue comic, it's a bit of a lower price point. I think a really good introduction place for people to start checking out Hellfire. They're just in there fighting some demons, keeping the city safe. What more do you need? You don't need to really make that overly complex to get a good story that people can enjoy and have fun with, right?
Well, there's something to be said about the old one and done.
Yeah, true.
That we don't really get anymore. I mean, Astro City did that for a long time, which is they would have sprinkled those in with the longer stories, but it's what would that be called? Compression in storytelling, I guess. Not playing for the trade.
Yeah, you're right. Astro City, I remember when that first started up, and it was cool because it's each issue was a standalone issue of the homage character or whatever. It's here's the first family, and here's the I don't even remember who else they had, but the Superman homage and the whoever
Samaritan,
else homage.
There's Confessor and Ultra Boy. First family, there's all sorts of characters in there. As probably one of my favorite comics ever written, because someone who loves superheroes and loves homages. And the half issue features one of the few comic books that ever made me cry.
I can't say I remember the Wizard half issue. I assume it was a Wizard mail-in.
Collected in all the trades. It's the one where the guy keeps dreaming about a girl, and she, because of a time war or something that happened, she no longer exists, but he remembers being in a relationship with her.
That sounds like the inspiration possibly for that Kang trade paperback that we were reading, right, Tetsuo?
Kang
the Conqueror.
I thought Kang
Avengers Forever.
Kang like a I was what? Oh, Kang, yeah, Kang the Conqueror, yeah.
Yeah, he's going through time for some girl as well.
Yeah, talking to himself.
The Time Variance Authority.
Yeah.
Who appeared in the Loki show.
Joe, is she throwing him? Or is that firing him out with fireball or something? Is he riding the fire?
So she's blasting him to him momentum to push him. And it's funny because it's actually supposed to be a reference to Yu Yu Hakusho when Yusuke blasted Kuwabara from the back so he could stab Toguro.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not like the old fastball special, Colossus and Wolverine.
Oh no.
And there's some science behind that, because if you actually ever have been around something that explodes, there actually is a force of that will predate fire by a little bit.
Momentum.
Blowing.
its momentum and the fact that Wolverine is like pretty much indestructible. So
Yeah, right.
but it's so funny that he sits on his hand.
Yeah.
And he throws. I just can't imagine someone like Hugh Jackman throwing it. Trying to make a live action would make no sense.
You know Deadpool 3, Ryan Reynolds is gonna try to make that happen. You know he's gotta try to make that happen.
Yeah, he
He's got
will.
Colossus.
Yeah, well, cool, man. Colossus is strong. Why not? Checking airplanes, checking Canadians, whatever, man.
The Juggernaut Colossus fight from Deadpool 2 is still one of the best of all time.
I haven't seen Deadpool 2.
I wanted
Is that
have
with-
it on DVD.
Is that the one with Colossus, or is that the?
Yeah. Well, both of them had
Yeah,
Colossus.
he's in both. Yeah.
Oh, is that the one with the fire guy? The fire.
Fire Fists. Was that
Yeah.
his name?
Yeah,
the
that was
second
two.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was basically, I think, supposed to be Sunspot or something like that, but they changed it at the end.
Sunspot? Huh.
Okay.
Well, because
cool.
Deadpool's a New Mutants character, so like a lot of
Mhm.
his side characters and all that were New Mutants or Deadpool characters.
Oh
Except
yeah.
for
Okay.
Colossus, because Colossus was just there to be
Magic
a
sister.
brick.
Okay.
He's
What? I
love you
want to
too.
get back to Hellfire here. So I had also picked up the Dark Army, which I guess is volume 2. That's something I'd like some clarification for. I
Yeah.
believe volume 1 Genesis is out of print and the Dark Army is in print, but then you also have the collected Ultimate Edition. And is that these two volumes together, or am I still missing something? Is there something more to that Ultimate Edition?
Yeah, so you're missing something. So what happened
Okay.
was, so when I got enough issues to make a trade, and so I printed Genesis. So that was like, I guess, volume 1 for all intents and purposes, right? And then the second half of that storyline, I was going to publish as a second volume, actually called Oblivion. But then I just decided to just combine it all into one big book, Ultimate Edition. So you have half of the first story.
Okay.
And Dark Army is the legit sequel. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, so I just finished up reading The Dark Army. I liked it. I thought it was a good follow-up story, even though apparently I missed out on some of it. But, I read Genesis 2018, so, it's been a little while, and I don't necessarily remember it all super well. But yeah, a couple things I liked about it, so I liked some of the writing in particular I found really cool. Okay, so like over here, he's going in his 69 Charger, and it says here like they don't know what I am, so I remind them. I am the guiding light that will deliver everyone from darkness, a light that will protect the innocent and punish the wicked. And I was like, that's, those words tell me who Cage Kane is, right? It's like that's him right there. And that's like such a great character that just really, really speaks to me. That's what I really like in my superheroes, like protecting the innocent, punishing the wicked. We got the Spectre, Ghost Rider, and Daredevil, Batman. A ton of other characters are based on this concept, but it really appeals to me. So I really liked that. Another bit that I liked, there's this Marcella becoming, don't want to spoil it too much for readers, but I think that since it's pretty much the concept of the volume, that's saying that she becomes possessed by a demon, Lamashtu. That was really cool. And so that's again the basis for this volume is Kane has to fight this person that he loves who's possessed by a demon. And so that of course caused some conflict there. It's like how do you fight somebody that you love, right? And so that brings up I understand like one of the things that you were trying to do here with the story was talk about mental health and the conflicts that Cage went through and his anger issues and that sort of thing. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit more about what you're trying to talk about there?
Yeah, no, for sure. So like with each each volume, they each have a different theme, because like I don't want to do the same thing kind of like over and over. I want like each Hellfire story to feel like unique. So like the first one was definitely 100% an origin story, and then definitely dealing with rage issues. But then you saw it briefly in the first book where you may have seen like he may have had like a nightmare at one point. But the story was still kind of fast paced, so you didn't really have time for him to kind of reflect on the fact that, well, this dude does have some PTSD. He was in hell for a year, and the question is, how much of it does he actually remember? So clearly, when the Leviathan shows up, yeah, he clearly remembers this guy tortured him, but I don't go into details. So the second book, I definitely wanted to be like, okay, let's explore a little bit of his mental state, because now things have calmed down a bit, and yeah, and then also I was just in a different place when I wrote the second story. So I wanted to, really humanize Kane even more and just kind of make him more relatable. And it just so happened, when I was going through the edits of the main story, the pandemic happened. So like there's like an afterword I wrote, which was like, yeah, pretty much, on point, where, we kind of like where I kind of overlapped my character at one point because I wasn't in the best headspace. And then so some of that kind of rubbed off into Kane, but just really wanted to humanize Kane even more, and then actually focus, show, yeah, he's not just okay. Like I kind of sped through it in the first book, but no, he's, he wasn't hell. Like, that doesn't just go away, And then also I love Born Again. Born Again is my favorite Daredevil story, and probably one of my favorite stories of all time. And so there's a lot of Born Again in this book too, because that whole story is about breaking Matt Murdock down and, just taking everything from just breaking him down. It's a master's class in just like mental health. And then by the end of it, being in a better place, like reborn, so to speak, because even like the final page, I kind of did like an homage to the final page of Born Again when you see Matt and Karen, walking down the street. Except here, it's Kane and Marcella, but they're like at the hedge maze back at his dad's house. But yeah, Born Again influenced a lot of this story and just kind of my own personal headspace at the time.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for that insight. I mean, mental health is definitely something that a lot of people suffer from, and it's been kind of stigmatized. People don't want to talk about it. They're embarrassed to admit it, or and by denying it, people aren't getting the help that they need. I've suffered from mental health at times myself, and I found the most important thing is having somebody to talk to, whether it's a loved one, a friend, a therapist. You need to talk about it. And even if you're not getting professional feedback, just talking about it, talking through it, and having somebody listen is very helpful in my experience.
For writing it is also very helpful.
Oh yeah.
Getting it out there some way so you're not keeping it bottled up, right?
So yeah, for me, like that's mental health is something I've dealt with and I deal with sometimes, and I found I'm a musician and I write songs. I'm in a band. So I used to write songs. I've been writing songs for like over 10 years, and I got back into it recently, and I find it healing to like kind of write it and express your thoughts on and get it out there, and you're right, talking to someone really helps. I left things bottled up inside me, and I thought, and I'm okay. Then I realized, talking to people actually is something that I should do. So it actually helped me. It's good to keep that in mind.
Yeah. I'm the walking mental case of I think of this group. It's but really major depression and abandonment issues that I've dealt with like my entire life, because my parents like threw me on other relatives and back and forth for almost all my time growing up, to where you don't gain friends because you're moving away every 2 years. So what's the point? So it's like I've developed like weird sort of, Keith has known me probably the longest of anybody here. It's like I've always just been really quick to like jump on friendships and all that. And it's just like in a very unhealthy and scary way. And it's like I've worked on that for like years, but that led to addiction issues, and that led to a lot of other issues like over the years that, you know, I fought with and like will probably continue to fight with the rest of my life. But, you know, there's a lot of months that are better than others, you know. It's like, and that's a lot more than I can say for 2 years ago or 3, which was like, I think 7 years ago was probably the lowest I've ever been. And I've been fighting like and going to get help since then. So
That's good. Yeah, getting help is good, you know.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
have cats, so that helps.
yeah, nothing to be ashamed of, you know. I think I first thought that a little, but you know, getting help is good.
Yeah, it's very, very brave to talk about it, try to get that help, you know, try to turn your life around, which,
Exactly.
you know, why should anything stop you from trying to improve your own life, right?
Yeah.
So good work, Dylan. I'm proud of you, man. You know, like you said, you know, we've known each other for
20 something years.
yeah, getting close to 30 years probably.
wow.
So
Wow.
you've come a long way, man. So I also want to shout out California just set up a mental health crisis hotline. It's 988. So they're trying to make it real easy, just 3 numbers. If you're in crisis, if a friend or loved one is in crisis, 988, simple phone call. You know, it can really help save lives. Just having somebody to talk to. A good friend of mine, Brian, he did that for a living. He was a mental health crisis operator, social worker, and you know, his life really made a difference. So if you need help, dial 988. All right. Well, on that, let's switch gears here a little bit. So Joe, what is, you know, your artist Carl has passed away. You're talking about Lance maybe filling in. But what does Hellfire and Hellfire Incorporated have in the future? What you got planned for them?
Incorporated for right now, I think is going to kind of stay as that one shot, you know, kind of one thing at a time. Quite frankly, Chris and I, we kind of jumped the gun like before when we, I guess, forming our universe. We had so many extensive plans, and we you know, we would like to do certain things, but we have to be realistic now too, you know. So kind of like condensing storylines and maybe just kind of creating an endpoint and just kind of going, okay, let's just get to this certain point first, and then, you know, and leave things maybe open-ended if we want to continue. But our lives have changed since we first started this endeavor back in like what, 2012. So
Wow.
yeah, so Incorporated will probably stay as that one shot for now, but I owe it to myself to get that 3rd Hellfire volume out, because I still want to do that. I like that story a lot. And that's the final, I guess, Hellfire volume, so to speak, because then the next thing would be the crossover, which I plan to have, you know, wrap up my Hellfire story and just completely. So that would be like the closure, and then, you know, that's that. And, you know, Incorporated, I guess, would kind of be like, if I put the trade together, be kind of like an epilogue, you know, kind of like, you know, at the end of the thing. And yeah, so that's kind of where it's at right now. But I definitely want to get that 3rd book done.
All right, cool. Yeah, we can't wait to see Hellfire, the 3rd book. Sounds like it might be maybe a couple years out still.
Yeah.
And be glad to have you back here when you're getting ready to put that out to you know what to expect and share it with our fans. So hey, since we're live streaming Tetsuo, do we have any viewers here? Maybe we open it up to see if we've got some viewer questions for Joe.
We do. I put it in the chat, but no one wrote a question yet. But yeah, if anyone's the viewer is watching, you can ask a question here in the chat on Twitch, and then we can relay it to him. But so far I don't see anything.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll keep an eye out for your questions. So, hey, Joe, so besides Hellfire, you got several other books in your Fracture Comics line. Why don't you tell us a little bit? You kind of talked about some of the books a little bit, but why don't you tell us more about your mini titles in your lineup?
Yeah. So I guess the Fractureverse, if you will, is kind of the main line, which includes Hellfire, Death of Darkness, and Essex, a new series tied to that same universe. Carl was the artist on that one as well. I got an issue out. I'd like to finish this as well because Monica, the main character here, she's I guess the final member, I guess, of our trinity, if you will. You got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. For us, it's Kane, Seku from Death of Darkness, and Monica. So yeah, so there's Essex, of course, there's the Hellfire line. There is Sugar Rush. Which is drastically different than anything else I've ever done, because literally me doing something happy and upbeat. So
why does that remind me of Full Metal Panic? You know what I'm talking about, Joe?
Yeah.
Why does that remind me of that?
But no, this
reminds me of Gunsmith Cats.
Yeah, yep. Some real fans here. But a lot of these new fans, they don't know. But no, Sugar Rush though, because I wanted to do a manga as well, and it's basically it's a comedy. It's just my love of Rumiko Takahashi's work, and with a bench of with a little bit of a One Punch Man thrown in terms of like one's like humor. So it's really me channeling Rumiko Takahashi, and it's a lot of fun. It's something kind of funny.
Are there any callbacks like, Inuyasha Kakome, or something to that regard?
Nah. Actually, Ranma was actually my favorite Rumiko title.
Oh, me too. I love Ranma.
Yeah.
Martial artist, crazy changing, yeah. Panda with a broom.
Yeah. And then I have Arc as well, which was kind of like a manga comic, I guess, kind of hybrid. I did way back. I mean, it's
nice.
Out of print at the moment. I could bring it back, but I was actually retooling the story to something better, which I like a lot more, and I'll probably go back and get that done at some point. But Arc was more of a cyberpunk kind of horror. Basically, if Bubblegum Crisis didn't exist, Arc would not exist. So I'll just say that. It takes place in the cyberpunk San Francisco. So, and main characters all have psychic powers, and they were in a rock band before things happened.
They were in a rock band. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like Mitatsu and Dylan, man.
Gosh, the future that we didn't want, we never got. The dystopia we all wanted, we never got. God.
All right.
Actually,
figurine.
I grabbed Chris's books as well. So I've been mentioning Death of Darkness, and then you held it up to the screen, but so that's Chris's volume 1 of Death of Darkness. And actually, like I haven't said what his story's about. So it's in the Fractureverse. So Seku, the main character, he finds out that he is half angel and half demon. And because of that, he's being hunted by both sides because he's a threat to the balance and should not exist. And when all he wanted to do was just tell the girl he likes that he likes her and just go to prom. But now he's thrown into this dark world of identity and all kinds of violence and problems. So there is a volume 2 out as well that Chris has produced. And again, these are in the same world as Hellfire. So Kane and Monica will meet Seku at some point. And then Chris just recently released a new manga, Edge of the End, which I personally think is his best work by far. Really polished work. It's the basic premise is that so you have these individuals that are born with these birthmarks, which means they're basically marked for death because eventually these people will turn into spider-like creatures and have to be killed. So if you have this birthmark, you're basically I guess, kind of put into a camp basically. And then you're just kind of living your days and you're just kind of like, well, you know, you don't know if you have a future or not. And, you know, and it kind of becomes it's a story about fear, and there's a little romance thrown into it, but it's a kind of heavy subject matter.
The facial expressions on that cover are great, by the way.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's really, his art team for this one is really good. It's really polished.
It's good.
Yeah, what's the suggested age range for those manga comics?
I would say Death of Darkness, probably PG-13.
Okay.
Edge of the End, I'd have to ask Chris about that. Did he actually put it on here? Oh, he said 16 and up. Okay, he did say 16 and up.
All right, cool.
Because I know what happens in here. I'm like, I don't know if that's PG-13.
That's a little
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah, so not really for all ages, but more, teenagers should be able
Definitely.
to enjoy these and understand them and not be too overwhelmed, hopefully.
I mean, if people are watching Attack on Titan, I mean, they can probably handle that stuff.
All right, cool. Cool. All right, well, so hey, where can everybody go to pick up these books?
So yeah, I mean, I'm 100% local. I'm putting books in San Francisco comic shops. So definitely, I guess, be on the lookout for those. Mission Comics, working on Isotope, Cape and Cow, Sour Cherry. Those are kind of the main four right now where I'm putting books in. And then you can always head over to the website, of course, www.fracturecomics.com, or go to our social media. We're very active on Instagram, at Fracture Comics. And then there's my personal at Joe the Writer 88. And on those Instagram, I guess, accounts, we have a link tree where, you can click the links to, order copies and just stay up to date on what we're doing. So once we have books, in specific stores, we'll make announcements and things like that.
That's great. We actually have some chats. Mr. Doc Locke is watching the first time chat. Said these storylines sound so awesome. Love that apocalyptic theme. Good versus evil stuff. Gotta pick these up.
No, thanks.
Yeah, and then someone named DeathMix13 is asking, what about bookstores? So I'm guessing like just a regular bookstore. Yeah, would you probably put the comic in bookstores or just comic book shops?
Yeah, so that's something we're working on. Because definitely, since we have trade paperbacks, that's definitely something work on distribution wise, to probably try to do Barnes and Noble and things like that. Because obviously single issues don't sell anywhere other than obviously comic shops, right? Since we do have enough, manga volumes, trades and whatnot. I was talking to Chris about, his mangas, like we need to set up a meeting with Kinokuniya, because like his stuff, honestly, like this book in particular, like it's so polished. Like I was at Kinokuniya a few days ago and I'm like, this book could easily be on the shelf. So I don't know what their deal is, how they set that up, but I'm pushing Chris to be like, let's talk to them. So maybe try to get it, get some of his stuff in there. And then, yeah, just further down the line, once we get, I guess, more ISBN numbers on books and figure out, inventory and whatnot, and probably try to go to like actual larger bookstores. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Hey, I'll tell you, I believe it's Florey's Books in Pacifica. I've had some friends, signing their books at that location. I picked up some like Paul Pope graphic novels. They had, good selection of different graphic novels. So you might want to reach out to them. It seems like they're pretty local, creator kind of friendly. Florey's Books in Pacifica.
No.
Yeah, so maybe hit them up.
No, cool. Thanks. Yeah, for sure.
Sure. All right, cool. Well, so we've got a few minutes left. I mean, Joe, anything else you want to tell us about your line?
I mean, no, I hope, people, pick things up and then, just kind of, feel free. I'm like reachable, social media, I'll respond. And, I just really like to hear what people think about it. I like, having conversations, whether it's positive, negative, whatever, just, I just like, talking to folks about the stories.
Cool.
Right. Are you on a Facebook or what are you on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're on everything. I'm most active on Instagram. So yeah.
Okay.
That's
Well, hey,
cool.
since we got some time, why don't you tell us about some of your all-time favorite comics, most
Mm,
influential comics, and your current favorite reads?
ooh, ooh. Like
Ha
you make me want to like roll over to my shelf behind me.
Yeah.
But you know, you know what? My favorite book of all time.
Hot Toys.
You know, the toys are slightly blurry.
So my favorite book of all time,
Hardware. Right
Hardware.
on.
Dwayne McDuffie.
Rest in peace, sir.
So
Yeah.
so I would say Hardware and Born Again, well, or just Frank Miller's Daredevil in general. Well, I guess okay, so I guess Hardware and Man Without Fear are the reason Kane Cage exists in the first place. So I would say those two. So no, Hardware, and again, obviously, Man Without Fear, Born Again, Claremont's God Loves, Man Kills. Love the hell out of that book. Berserk, favorite manga of all time. R.I.P. Kentaro Miura. Those are like the main. Well, obviously, Ranma, of course. Like, yeah, just gotta think. Like, I love so much, but like, I guess those are like kind of the main ones, and obviously Yu Yu Hakusho as well. Yeah, yeah.
So what about Hardware do you love the most? Like, what, why does Hardware mean so much to you? What really speaks to you in there?
So it was actually funny enough, like the first comic I ever read that was written and drawn by Black creators.
Cool.
And we know Dwayne McDuffie was a genius. So the writing is just on point. And I just really resonated with a lot of elements of the story. Also, because like Hardware, like he goes through, basically him and Kane kind of go through a similar arc. Because I don't know if you've read the first volume of Hardware at all, but like he's like angry, like literally like on the warpath and has to learn to calm the hell down. So yeah, there's some similarities there, but no, he's just like, he's a different type of character because like obviously he breaks stereotypes because the main character, Hardware, Curtis Metcalf, he's a brilliant scientist and whatnot, and he works, he the character graduated like college at like 14 or something like that, and then he went to work for the Alva Corporation and just had this lab where he was free to do whatever he wanted to do, but of course Alva's like making billions off his inventions, but I mean but Curtis is still making like damn good money, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But then he kind of got a little too comfortable thinking, yeah, Alva's like a surrogate father to me, he's perfect for me to take over. Then at one point he was like, yeah, I kind of, hey Alva, like can I get some more money because you're making money off my inventions? And then Alva was like, oh no, don't make no mistake, you're a cog in the machine, you better learn your place. Then he was like, he got mad, and that's when it was in his clause where he can't work anywhere else other than Alva. So he started using like resources there to like make his suit and everything. And it was destroying Alva's business from the inside. And even like, thwarting his criminal activities too, because Alva's clearly shady too as well. And then I love this scene. It's so good because he has a love interest who's like a professor of like African-American studies. And like, she finds out who he is, his secret, and then they have this great conversation where she basically goes, wait, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is essentially what she said. She's like, so you didn't get a raise and decided to throw a temper tantrum. And then he was like, he kind of did. It's like, I get it, Alva's an asshole, but like, you still make good money. It's like, is it really the worst thing in the world? So then that's when he kind of calmed down and used those resources to actually be more of a hero. It was pretty funny. Like she basically put him in his place. It's like, dude, like really?
Cool. Yeah. I only read like the first issues when those came out way back in the 90s, but I had been reading the recent DC relaunch of the Milestone lines. I was more reading Static and Icon. So I know like Curtis helps fund Static and mentors him as a
That's
hero
kinda
in,
cool. I
in
like
the
that
most
in the
recent
movie.
series. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. And Static was just like, man, I got all this awesome gear.
Yeah.
I
So
think they've been only in limited quantities, but I've been hunting them down. They're doing there's 2 volumes of it now, but the complete
Compendium.
Milestone hardcover editions, and it's just like you mentioned Cape and Cowl, I think they might have it. Because their trade paperback collection is just like second to none.
cool. Where's Cape and Cowl at?
Over in Oakland.
Oh, okay.
It is a great place.
Wow, check
Oh.
that out.
That's what
Wow.
Dylan was talking about. This is one of them.
All
Yeah,
right.
the first one. The second one just came out.
Oh, I need to get
So they're
that.
trying to do, I think the plan was 4 volumes,
Okay.
but it depends on how well it sells, I think, too.
Right.
So
Nice. You know, my favorite actually was the New 52 relaunch of Static, and they had McDaniel drew it, you know, the guy that did Nightwing for 100 issues.
Scott McDaniel, yeah.
I love him. And so he drew that. It only lasted like 8 issues or something, which was a
Yeah.
total bummer, man. That was my favorite. And I don't know who wrote it, but that was my favorite Milestone series of
I
all
thought they
time.
didn't have the permission to print him at the time. I think that's why it got I think Grant McDuffie's wife didn't give exact permission, so I thought that's why it lasted so little. Only 8
Okay.
issues.
There was a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on.
Okay. Yeah, that's too bad. That was a good series.
Because she owns 51% of the rights to the character.
Oh, cool. Great.
Of all the Milestone characters, because Dwayne left that for her in his will when he passed away.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Very nice. Cool. Well, hey, Dylan, you know, you said that you had some current news, man. What's up with that?
Well, the only real news that we've had lately is the announcement of the DCU new film line going forward from now under James Gunn's leadership with, I forget who the other, Safran, I think is the other guy running that with him.
I think so.
So what do we have? We had the Booster Gold announcement. I'm not doing them in order, but yes, Booster Gold. Superman Legacy is going to be the first one out of the gate.
Oh, yeah.
Which should be like a younger Superman, but not year one, more of a just younger Clark and already Superman, which thank God I'm sick of origin movies. Batman Brave and the Bold, which will bring Robin to the screen as a child for the first time since ever. But unfortunately, it's going to be Damian. But I think the Bat family already exists.
Unfortunately, Damian, you've told me before that Damian's your favorite and best Robin ever.
Dick
And I
Grayson is
might
the best
agree.
Robin ever, but he's a better Nightwing.
I like Damian.
And Tim Drake's my Robin.
Okay,
Come on. Actually,
so-
I'm old enough that Jason Todd was my Robin when I first started reading comics.
I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. We'll say
I'm sorry.
Oh, but the one that I'm most excited about, which I don't know if either of you read the Tom King Supergirl story, but
yes,
he's adapting that for the film.
Oh man, that's gonna be awesome.
True Grit in Space? Hell yeah.
Yeah. So the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, was that what the subtitle was? Yeah. Tom King is so great. That series was awesome. But for me, it was really the art. The art was so amazing, right?
Yes,
so how are
but
they
if they
going to
adapt
capture
that
that on
right,
screen?
Like think about if you could get someone in there like Luc Besson, who did Fifth Element, or Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. Like if they got him in there, I think he could capture that sort of Mobius, like European French sort of art direction that series had.
Okay.
And casting Supergirl would be super important too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think getting that look, which, I mean, Dave McKean and Neil Gaiman Mirror Mask, they caught the look there, right? And with Sandman, they had pretty good success with capturing some of the feel for Sandman. So I guess they can do it if they try really hard.
Yeah,
but,
well, it's going to be mostly, I think it's going to come down to color choices too, because that book is very specific sort of pastel color palette.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Oh,
well, say Dylan, sorry to change it back, but you said the Booster Gold announcement, and
Booster Gold's getting a movie.
Okay,
a movie or a TV show, I don't remember which, but unfortunately we're getting Blue Beetle before that, which is Jaime. So it's like I don't know if we're going to get Ted Kord, which is the best part of Booster Gold.
I like Jaime.
Everyone likes Jaime, but it's like Ted and Booster were like inseparable.
Yeah, you need to introduce Ted Cord so you can have blue and gold.
Ted
Yeah.
Cord might be in that Blue Beetle film though too.
Yeah, but you know, in the newest and maybe even the last Blue Beetle, so the newest one is Blue Beetle Graduation Day, and you know, Ted Cord is like mentoring Jaime, right? So he's funding him with Cord Tech and all of that kind of stuff. So,
I guess
so
we'll
it's an
find out if he
easy
used to be Blue Beetle
transition.
or not when that comes around. Oh, but starting out before Superman, there's also 2 TV series, which is the Creature Commandos.
Okay.
To be animated, which if anybody remembers that series is like right up his alley.
I dig Creature Commandos, but interesting choice. I didn't think too many people were fans.
That's why I think it's going to be one of the HBO Max series, followed by Waller with Viola Davis still. Waller,
Amanda Waller,
which is going to be a follow up. I guess the Suicide
probably.
Squad and Peacemaker are still going to be connected to this. Which is why I think Jason Momoa is staying and Gal Gadot are staying. Like the 2 most popular actors that weren't an older Superman for what they were trying to do. Because they're both great in like their respective roles. I forget, there was a couple of other announcements, but those were the big ones. No Justice League announcement, which is good. And the Batman is still going to continue because they're doing Elseworlds.
Okay.
Which as a long time DC fan is like, the naming convention is like chef's kiss. Because those Elseworld books were so good.
Yeah, cool. Well, hopefully, I'm sure right off the bat, they're going to be doing the Kelly Jones Red Rain Batman, right? That is one of their most popular.
Nothing of that. It's just the stuff that's not connected to their universe will be called Elseworlds.
Okay.
Which is why Teen Titans Go is still going to be around.
Right, yeah, I heard about that,
Okay, I got you. Yeah, shoot, man, I was hoping like they did Metropolis, Dave McKean. Is that the guy? No, I don't think that's his name. McKeever, Ted McKeever, Metropolis. And then he did like Wonder Woman, Amazon Blue, and I can't remember if there's a third one, but McKeever, oh man, those were my favorite Elseworlds. I don't think they were as popular as the others, but those would be awesome to see.
There was a Batman one too, and I forget which one that was called.
Yeah.
Because I think based off Nosferatu, if I'm thinking the right one.
I think you're right. Yes.
Or the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read those, and I don't have them anymore, unfortunately. But no, the best one of all time was the one by Justice League New Frontier writer-artist. He did the Batman one where it's Ego. Batman Ego is like one of the best Elseworlds books of all time. And
that was Darwin Cook.
Thank you. May he rest in peace as well.
I think that I saw Ego on the ads, but I don't think I ever read that. I think that came out in the 3-year period that I was not collecting comics because I had money issues, like having no job.
Story, which is like Batman basically versus Bruce Wayne.
Okay, ongoing battle all the time.
It's kind of where it's an exploration of Batman and his closest allies and the mission. I'll sum up the story briefly for a 20-year-old book, since like if you spoilers, he busts the Joker gang up like before the story even starts, and the guy that gave him all the information is on a bridge and he's going to kill himself because it's better that he does that than what the Joker would do to his family and him. And so Batman tries to stop him and he's like, screw you, and jumps and kills himself anyway. And so Batman's like being in question, like, do I really still want to do this mission and all that? And so he loses kind of control of himself and like is speeding like 120 miles an hour and like stops the Batcave like with that much to the ledge of like down below, almost killing himself, and like strips himself of the Batman thing, and he's like, he's gonna quit, and Batman comes to him and like talks to him, like the ego and id, I guess, of Bruce Wayne Batman dichotomy, saying that Batman saying that he needs to become more of a solo Avenger of the night and all that, like, and Batman arguing with himself, saying why he can never let him fully take control, because it's really just like a fantastic read. Like, everything Darwin Cook did, it was like perfect.
Cool.
What was the name of this one?
Batman Ego.
Ego.
It's collected in Ego and Other Tales, TAILS, with Darwin Cook, because it's got that one, Catwoman, Win in Rome, and a couple of the Batman Black and White stories, I think.
Yeah, I remember Catwoman, Win in Rome. I picked that up, read it on a plane flight. Good stuff.
Yeah,
man.
that's where she
Good
got
times.
her current design from.
Oh, huh. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the sort of leather bodysuit with just the goggles.
Ears or tails. That's not her current design though anymore. They changed it. Now she has like the cutout armpits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but they did keep my partner Danny, she was mentioning the other day, there's still the little ring that on Darwin Cook's design is for the zipper, right?
Yeah.
But now there's no zipper. And so Danny's like, well, why is there a ring? So it's like some homage to the Darwin Cook design.
And to give a little bit of visual interest to the outfit and all that. It's the same reason why Jim Lee decides to add popped colors and lines everywhere to something. It's like, makes it really complicated and less interesting sometimes, I think.
All right, cool. Well, hey, thanks for the news, Dylan. I think we're a little over our regular time, so wrap this on up. Joe Thompson, thanks for joining us, co-owner of Fracture Comics, creator of Hellfire. Very great to have you and talk with you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a fun time, gentlemen.
All right, Tatsu, some closing words.
Yeah, so it's great having Joe on the show. I'm also a comic book artist and writer, so it's good to see your stuff out there. It's great. I'll be trying to pick up your stuff too. And yeah, hope to have you back on the show and with your further work. And thanks for joining us, guys. It was great. We actually got some comments. That was really cool. I do encourage people to comment and ask questions, and we're trying to build this as a show, so that's awesome.
All right, cool. And our next graphic novel Geeks is going to be on February 26th, same bat time, same bat channel. We understand that the new Ant-Man movie, Quantum Mania, is coming out. We're going to check that out, talk about that a little bit. Also, February is Black History Month, so we want to honor that and talk about some of our favorite Black comic characters and Black comic creators. So, representation matters to us. We love diversity and think that it's very important. So join us on the 26th as we talk about that. Send us your comments, suggestions. I believe it's geeks@goblinscomics.com. And we'll see you all again soon. Thanks a lot.
Yes. All right, we're going to end the show. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you later. We did live off.
Cool.
Hey, how do I do this? All right, we're stopped.
There we go.